Thanks everybody for taking some time out of your day today and kind of joining us to go through some new functionality that we've been working on. The topic today is all about the invoice delivery to clients, and we're all really excited here because this has actually been about a 5 to 6 months work in progress here. And so the agenda that I kind of have today is at the beginning here, I want to talk through kind of like how did we come across this and what our thought process was to get to this feature. Then in the middle here, I'm going to show some kind of conceptual designs of where we think this feature is going to go. And then at the end, I'm going to actually show what's available today. So at any point in time, once you guys leave here, or maybe at the end of this, if you're interested and you want us to enable it in your account, it's available across any subscription. Just let us know. So you can either let us know here or use that little intercom chat bubble at the bottom of the screen or email us, and we can get that enabled. So that's kind of the quick agenda.
And the same goes for questions too. If at any point you've got questions, or maybe Nick or I skip out on something you'd like to see or have questions about, absolutely ask in the chat or in the QA section, and we'll get to those as soon as we can.
Excellent. Okay, so context for this feature. We, again, about 5-6 months ago, we kind of went out and did some interviews with various firms, whether it's the managing partner or the operator, and kind of took a step back from our software and just asked the question, where are you guys struggling today? Where do you feel like you spend the most time? What do you think is the biggest breakdown in communication between you and your client? And this constant theme kept coming up around when the email or when the invoice gets delivered to the client usually has like a budget in mind of what they should be anticipating. And then they open up that invoice and they see a much different number, and sometimes 3, 4, 5x, maybe even more. And there's this big sticker shock. And then they, contact the law firm, and you guys have a back and forth, many different cycles restating your value of what you just provided on behalf of that client, and kind of re-educating them on what the standing is. So and I don't know if anybody else here has experienced that, but time and time again, that seems like a common thread at law firms. And so we took that learning and kind of looked at different areas where we think we can impact and kind of alleviate that button, maybe that problem, and also just kind of maybe help articulate the value from the firm's perspective to the client a lot easier. So that was the whole thesis behind this feature that we're going to show is, can we enable law firms to articulate their value more efficiently to the clients and on that delivery of the invoice? So I'm going to pause. Anybody have any questions or comments? Has anybody joining us today maybe had a couple of those hard conversations where a client, had sticker shock and you had to constantly explain to them this is what our value is. Okay, well,
crickets.
Feel free to chime in.
So quiet today. Normally we have all kinds of activity. What's up, everybody?
Anna raised her hand. So Anna, hopefully that's if you have a question, feel free to type it, but hopefully that's raising the hand like, yes, you deal with that all the time. Okay, so that's the thesis. And then I'm going to, again, share my screen and show you where we think in the final kind of end product of this feature is going to be. So okay, share my screen.
Oh, is this the conceptual part?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yep, it is visible.
Okay. So the place that we focused on was actually the delivery of the invoice via the email. And so this feature is going to be in LeanLaw, where you can enable it and kind of create this customized body email that'll be used to send the invoice to your clients. The invoice, we're not changing the invoice at all. We're still using the QuickBooks invoice, what they generate. But this feature is all about giving more summaries, giving more information in the body of that email that's more specific to the client than what they receive today. There's also a couple other benefits from the using the QuickBooks kind of delivery of email that we'll get into. But this feature, we also built it in a way that is, if you're familiar with Legos, you can kind of mix and match and add these blocks. All these, it's very customizable, that if you're sending these emails and you get some feedback from your clients like, hey, it'd be good to know XYZ. A lot of these modules are very easy for us to build and just add into the system. And so it's architected in a way that you guys can give us feedback of things that you want to see in the body of the email, and we can quickly kind of iterate and provide that so that you can enable it and use it on the next sending of the invoice. Okay, so a couple key features of this, or a couple key components. One is we allow you guys to set a reply to email. So that means when this is enabled and you send an email to a client, if they reply back to it, it would actually go to whatever email address you provide on this line. QuickBooks right now kind of has a dark hole that if somebody actually does reply back to those, sometimes they go to you, sometimes they don't. The other thing is a customizable subject line. So we have some kind of defaults that you can use, but you can also build your own logo. So you can do branding on both the logo and the pay button. You also get, a nice little intro statement here. One of the things that we heard time and time again from that research is that these email delivery of the invoice might be a good lead generation for the law firm. And so one of the things we're recommending to anybody who enables this is to have some sort of lead generation question. Default, we're gonna put in this, are there any other new problems that our firm can help you with, to maybe like stir some conversation with the client. But we highly recommend using this. But again, if you don't, it's completely customizable. So you can put whatever intro you want. But then these modules get to be really, really unique. So if anybody here does trust or Evergreen or anything like that, sometimes it's very hard to summarize the current financial standing of where a client's at. And so we're going to have modules like this account summary where you can show, a client at a quick glance, hey, you've had some outstanding charges. This new invoice, we're going to charge you for a certain amount. We're taking some out of your retainer and you're on Evergreen, so we're going to recharge you. These summaries should be a quick way for the client to gain more context before they open up that invoice. And the nice thing too is the client should only see one pay button. So all of this trust, Evergreen, paying off accounts receivable, all will come down to one pay button. And so this is where we're going. This conceptually of, giving you guys more tools to customize what's in the email, providing more summaries and context to the client so it's easier for them to consume that information, while still kind of using that QuickBooks email or that QuickBooks invoice. So I'm going to pause right there. And are there any questions so far, Chase?
I'm not seeing any questions yet.
Okay.
But I do know something that we get asked quite a bit in support, and I suspect we'll get asked the same here. Oftentimes a firm will want to send like an account summary or a statement of unpaid invoices. Say the firm hasn't done any work for this client, but they want to send them an update of, hey, here's where you're at. You owe us for these couple of invoices, frequently called an account summary. Is that something that we'll be able to send through the invoice delivery, or are we still going to have to rely on QuickBooks for that?
Great question. So where this feature stands today, this is just that initial sending of the email. In Q4, so October, November, December, we're going to be working on what we're calling a follow-up sequence to this. So you can configure, if they haven't paid in X amount of days, send this second email. If they haven't paid in X amount of days after that, send this email. So there's going to be like a follow-up cadence that you can add to that, but that functionality won't be coming to the end of the quarter.
Got it. Okay, so we did get a question. Yeah. We did get a question. Would the settings be sticky, or would I have to set them for each new email?
Great question. So this first iteration, when you set these and you save them, it applies globally every time for every client. We do have a couple iterations at the end of this quarter that will allow you to customize it client or matter by matter. But for right now, if we were to enable it in your account today, these are sticky and they apply to every time you send that email.
So this is going to apply to every client in Matter.
Correct. Out of the gate, the current iteration will apply to every client in Matter.
Got it. Okay. Sweet. We did get another question. Someone looks like Tom is new to LeanLaw. Welcome, Tom. His question is, how were invoices sent prior to this new feature, through QuickBooks Online or through LeanLaw?
Great question. Yeah, so we typically rely on QuickBooks. Other people, will generate the invoice for them and then they'll download it and send it manually. It just kind of depends on the firm, but most people, we will, when they use, and I'll show you this here in a little bit when we actually go to the product, when they use the, deliver this invoice via email, we are telling QuickBooks, hey, grab this invoice and send it to the client.
Correct. Yeah, we're still, so the simple version is we have been traditionally before this relying on the QuickBooks functionality to send invoices in any kind of communication. Oh my goodness, Alicia just sent me a novel. Nic, do you want to go ahead and continue, and I'll figure out what Alicia is saying, and we'll come back to that.
Sure. So I'm gonna pivot from this into what is actually available today, and then we'll go from there. So what's available today is we're building out those modules, but they're not there yet. So when this is enabled, you can still do your, sender information, the email address in case somebody replies. You can customize that subject line. You can brand it, update your initial kind of intro body statement, and have a pay button here. So this is just kind of like the basics. We're working on that account summary and the module for paying off a full balance. So those two are in the works and should be completed in the next few weeks. But right now, you can have the basic functionality. When that's enabled, this means that, if you're on that billing tab in QuickBooks, oh, and of course I got disconnected, but that's always great. In here, when you select those options and then you say deliver by email, when this setting is enabled, so if you toggle this on, you are basically telling us anytime you do that interaction of, hey, deliver this via email, we will use these settings to compile up the email for that specific client or that specific matter, and LeanLaw will then take over and deliver this invoice. If this is disabled and you do that functionality, we still do the same old tell QuickBooks to deliver this on your behalf. And then, an example of what this might look like to a client is, this is an example, they still have the QuickBooks invoice attached to it, but we're using those settings that were configured in this page that I showed. Okay. One thing, and then I'll open up for more questions. We tried to figure out how to use QuickBooks merchant services and their payment links to do this. But when we get to a lot of these complex account summaries or multiple different things going on, whether it's, paying from trust and doing some AR and trying to figure out what the payment link was, QuickBooks merchant services didn't give us the flexibility. And so the partner that we chose, and we've chosen a couple times for a couple different reasons, is Gravity Legal. So these payment links are actually Gravity Legal payment links, and they are what's powering a lot of this flexibility that we get from modules like the account summary and a few other things. So that is one requirement for this, is if you do want to use this, we do need to get you signed up on Gravity Legal.
And that's a pretty big piece. The Gravity Legal, they've actually made it a lot easier to get signed up and get started with it, which is fantastic. Way back when we started, it used to be that myself or someone else from support had to help and manually set up a bunch of those things, but now it's actually quite a bit easier. So okay, so I've synthesized Alicia's question, and it basically comes down to the how do I say this? I had it all set up in my head and now I did. She's asking, the payment date would be after the invoice date. So Nic, to kind of set it up, oftentimes users will, or not users, sorry, clients will make a payment between two invoice dates, but the default QuickBooks account summary doesn't show that payment coming in. And so the client will ask, hey, why isn't my payment being applied? To kind of ask it in a different way, is anything in here built in to show an account summary or a list of previous transactions, invoices, and payments?
That is actually another module that we've heard interest in is, hey, can we do a payment summary as well? So can we show somebody the last quarter's worth of transactions or the last month's worth of transactions so they can see what they've paid? To answer your question though, when we pull in these account summary information and we go and say Gravity, hey, we need a payment link for 1,500 in this example. We are pulling all of this information from QuickBooks to know what is at the point of you sending the email, what is the current financial standing of that client. So all of this information would just be coming from QuickBooks, and we're kind of relying on that to be up to date. So hopefully that's two different flavors of the question that was asked. And if I didn't answer that, please let us know.
I'm sure Alicia will ask again if it wasn't clear.
Okay.
We've got another question here from Ali. Will trust statements be customizable? Similarly, can you generate one that shows transactions from a certain time period?
Okay, so the first part there, trust statements customizable. When this is enabled, we are so if you select this module as yes, anytime there is any trust related things we want to attach the statement, we're using the standard formatting that we offer in our current trust statement generation. So Chase, you actually might know more about the customization that's available there than I do, but we're basically just automating the generation of that and attaching it to the email.
So yes, trust statements are already customizable. I don't think there's any extra customization that's added here. And the second question of can you generate one that shows transactions from a certain time period? No, I think you actually still have to go to QuickBooks for that, especially if you're looking for balances as of a specific date. I know that still has to be done in QuickBooks. So looks like Jeff had a question. Oh my goodness, I feel like I can't read. But will the pay button link to Gravity Legal if they are already using that feature?
Yeah, I think Jeff and Doreen, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Yep.
I have kind of similar questions here. So yes, we are partnering with Gravity on this. Again, we tried to talk to the merchant services team at QuickBooks to see, hey, how can we make it so that we can just get one payment link in these emails, but to do both general liability for the trust related stuff and the AR for paying off invoice, and they didn't have that flexibility. So we went back to Gravity and said, hey, can you guys help us with this flexibility to make sure we can do all these different components in an automated way, but give the client the easiest possible way to pay this off? And so Gravity said, yep, they can do it. And so we partnered with Gravity Legal. All of these buttons, all of these links are their links that we're generating.
So, thank you, Karen. Karen came in and answered the same thing in a fraction of a second. So thank you, Karen. Fantastic explanation, Nic. Monica's got a question real quick, and then we'll move on. Can we use other vendors for payment links? And I believe the answer is not in this form. I know some firms use LawPay, but that's either handled manually or added to the memo on the QuickBooks side. The functionality we're talking about here is only with Gravity Legal. So like Nic was pontificating, we tried to go through QuickBooks merchant services, but we're not successful. So at the moment, it is just Gravity Legal.
Right.
All right, Nic, What's up next?
This is it. This is what we wanted to talk about today and kind of get this out there and get feedback and see if people want to use it. But this is what we're working on. The next couple weeks is really solidifying these different modules. And again, the account summary one is really, really unique, I think, because we're going to be automating. Like if you've thought about using Evergreen before but it's been kind of a jumbled mess and you're not sure how to actually execute it, we're actually taking the time to work through this to make sure we do Evergreen correct on all these charges to clients. And so this module and a few others, we're really taking our time to automate this as much as possible and make it as easy for the clients to kind of, again, pay that one button, but the firm collects all the money they need. So building out the modules is what we're working on next, but I went through all the material that I kind of wanted to show today.
So there was something, there's a little bit of a nugget that I know I personally have heard requested from people on Evergreen specifically. So if anyone here uses that, pay attention to this. Nic, if I understand correctly what you're saying, we are now able to automate requesting of funds to refill Evergreen accounts.
Exactly.
Okay, so now instead of having to manually request it whenever a firm or whenever a client, goes beneath their Evergreen limit, they're now automatically requested to refill that.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, so we make, and it's one payment link. So again, that one payment link, when they pay that, they'll handle the replenishment if needed on the trust and pay out any outstanding accounts receivable. So it's to the client, it looks like one payment link, but behind the scenes, we're going to be doing that replenishment plus paying off the remainder of their AR.
That is sweet. Karen, can we do any customization of the invoice layouts and tie them to clients within LeanLaw?
So you probably know this one better than I do, but
I'm going to guess the answer is no, because we haven't talked about this. I believe what she's asking is, can you set different custom form styles in QuickBooks and have them tied to different clients within LeanLaw? And Karen, if I got that wrong, please do correct me. But I believe we don't have that with this feature.
Correct.
So Lou N asks, we only use Gravity Legal for trust payments. Is that possible with this format? We currently use payment links from QuickBooks for current and AR invoices to clients and not through Gravity Legal.
Yeah, so we can't split it like that. When this is enabled, we're using Gravity for both the AR and the trust items.
Luan, if that didn't quite answer it, go ahead and let us know. Got a question from Duran. We don't like the PDF invoices generated by QuickBooks.
Same.
She's careful. I've gotten in trouble for voicing similar opinions here. Is there a way to attach their custom PDF of the invoice to this email feature?
That's a great piece of feedback. We have not accounted for that yet, but I'm going to write a note to think through how unique attachments could work, because what you described is not uncommon. You're not the only one that does some modifications of that and of that invoice, and that's something we should definitely think through. So thanks for bringing it up.
That way I can send all of my clients cute images of my dog in addition to the invoice. I sucker them in with the dog pictures, and then they see the invoice they weren't expecting. It gets them every single time. Cool. I think we're good on questions for right now. Nic, can you show us what this looks like right now? If I wanted this enabled in my firm, what would I be getting?
Yeah, that was this section here. So I'm actually in the product when this is enabled. In the settings under your firm setup, there'll be a new option called Invoice Email Delivery. In there, you can customize the email address, again, the logos, the subject line, the intro statement, all of that. And then when it's enabled and you go to your, I know my Sandbox QuickBooks account isn't connected for some reason, but when you go to billing and you select on the QuickBooks tab, hey, deliver these by email, when this is enabled, we will use whatever settings you compile here to send it.
Got it. So this does not have all of the functionality you were showing in the Figma, in that model previously.
Right. This is a conceptual design of where we're going and what people can anticipate to see in the coming weeks to months. But for right now, we have just the basic bare bones of configuring an email to send it.
Got it. So I see there's a little paperclip icon there that says select attachments. Is that separate attachments, or is that only things currently available within LeanLaw?
Yeah, so that's only the ones that are currently available in LeanLaw. Like if you do any, and I know this is misspelled and we're fixing that, but if you do any leads coding for all your entries, we can automatically attach that through this functionality. Same with trust statements. So when enabled, we use our standard trust statement generation and we just attach it to the email.
Got it. Ooh, David, sorry, has some fantastic questions. Where would we go to see the sent emails?
So that is another piece that's quickly going to be following this. So we have some tools internally on our team that we're monitoring all these emails to make sure there's no bounces or rejections or anything like that. We do give you some warnings. And again, I wish my QuickBooks was connected, but when you actually send that invoice, if it errors out, and now it works. If it errors out and there's any issue with the email, you will see something like this, where it'll say, hey, this email failed, and give you a reason why. A lot of times it's, either we're missing a gravity link or you don't have a to or whatever the contact information for the client that you want to send this to. But we will show you items like this to say like, hey, we failed to send this email, and then some suggestions on how to fix that.
Got it.
But in Q4, we're planning on having a detail audit log of these emails where you can see, did they click things? Did they open it? How many times did they open it? We'll have all those analytics available.
It's like my own email inbox inside of LeanLaw. David also asked, can an alternate reply address be included so questions via reply email would go back to accounting staff?
Yeah, so one of the things we also use on here is these CCs and BCCs on your QuickBooks settings. So these emails, anything you put in here will also be included on those emails.
So there's not a way to set an alternate reply so it doesn't. So outside of that, there's not a way to set a specific alternate reply.
No, outside this, we just have the one right now. And I'd kind of want to learn more about what David is thinking there, or whoever asked the question. But we're kind of using the settings within QuickBooks of, what other email addresses do you want us to add for CC and BCC?
Got it. So David's got a follow-up to his original question. So if there was a dispute with a client on billing, how do we get, quote, copies of what was sent when this feature first goes live?
Great question. So until we have that email log, our analytics and whatnot can be accessed through our support team. And so if you have specific questions on that, until we have the email log available, our team can grab that for you. But the other thing is on that actual invoice, when you open it up, all of the account summary information, all of the current charges, even the payment link. So when you use Gravity, we automatically add a payment link in the memo. All of this should kind of be available on the invoice itself, but if you need more granular data, we can provide that as well.
Got it. So if you can go back to that email delivery page, right? So if I understand correctly, if a client replies to the email, they'll be replying to accounting@myLeanLaw.
Correct. And how I configure this. Yep. If they hit reply, it goes back to whatever email address you put in your settings.
Got it.
This is just because I'm an employee of LeanLaw. I put this one in, but you can put whatever email from your firm to get these replies.
Yes. When testing this, I may or may not have accidentally put the support email in and started spamming the team's inbox with test emails. So just keep in mind, the address you put there is where it gets sent.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, a whole bunch of questions here. So another one from Monica. I noticed that there's an icon for email or print option in the billing in the QuickBooks tab, but when you create the contact, you don't have the option to opt out of email invoice. When trying to send to drafts, it will give you an error because there was no email entered. If we have no email address because the client opted out, how do we create an invoice without an email address?
That sounds like maybe something we should test outside of this, Chase, to better understand. And
so
come back to you, Monica.
I understand what she's asking. The easiest route, Monica, is just to add a fake email address.
Right.
Whether it's something internal or something that you know is a dead email link. That's the fastest way. But like Nick said, we'll do some testing on that and see if we can find a proper solution to it. I just believe the email is part of the required fields for client creation. So, oh, yep, you already did it. So perfect. You're way ahead of the curve on that one. I got a question from Sean. Is Gravity Legal necessary to use this feature? Can we use this without the pay link?
Yeah, and I think CG chimed in here. Yes, so Gravity Legal is a requirement to use this feature.
Got it. Yep, that's the one. There we go. Yep, just like you said. Okay, and yes, there are yes, Duran, there are a couple of other spelling errors on the page,
Yep.
but we did catch that, and so on the next iteration, those will be fixed. Maybe new ones for you to find. So if you do find those, let us know, and we'll ping the engineering team and say, hey, check this out.
Yeah. Okay. And if people want to learn more about Gravity Legal or have questions about that, also let us know. We changed the integrations page for Gravity Legal as well. And so there's a couple button options that if you want to create an account, when you create an account, there's no like obligation to carry on with them. So if you do that sign up to learn more and you sign up, they actually reach out and start talking to you. Or if you just want to talk to us before you do that, happy to schedule time and talk you through.
Along those lines, we got a question from Marie. What is the cost of Gravity Legal?
Yeah, Gravity is very similar to most of these other payment processing. I believe it's, for visas and basically card payments, it's 2.9% fee of the transaction. You can pass these. So every fee that I'm going to talk about, you can pass those on to the client.
Real quick. Just to answer the base question, I don't think Gravity Legal actually costs anything to get signed up and integrate it. Oh
yeah. There's no subscription cost. There's no, like, you have to commit to them for a period of time. There's nothing like that. There's no cost to do the sign up, have an account, and it just sits there and does nothing.
Right. It's just the fees on transactions.
Yeah, just the transaction fees, which is your pretty standard, like 2.9% on all cards. And I believe it's we'd have to double check, but I think it's in the neighborhood of 0.3 or 0.35% on ACH.
Yeah, it's pretty small. Alicia has a question. Any idea if Gravity allows the credit processing fee to be automatically added to the payment?
Yes. Yeah, so they call it surcharge. So you can enable surcharge to pass those fees on to your client, and it gets added to the payment balance for the client.
Oh, she already knows that. Oh, okay. I don't even have to do anything. It's like you two are talking directly. And Karen, yes, the fees can only be passed on in some states and under certain jurisdictions, I believe. So don't just go willy-nilly adding that surcharge to things. Make sure you actually get it checked out to make sure that that's legal. I think we may have lawyers available to check that.
Yeah, and one thing, so we did do a revamp of our Gravity Legal integration, And we are passing address information when we go to create these links. So I'm actually going to take this as a to-do for me to go talk with the Gravity team to be like, hey, if you have this information, do you guys automatically know, hey, this state doesn't allow that, and you just omit it from the payment link? But we are sending all that address information, so they should know, all right, this client lives in this area, and we're trying to create a payment link, and hopefully they know the laws of that, and they're applying that surcharge or not, depending on your setting. Oh, and Amos is from the Gravity team joining in here. So great to see you, Amos.
Maybe we should just have Amos do a quick sales pitch of Gravity in the chat. We did have Emery on here a couple of months ago. Emery works is the face of Gravity Payments. And he was on here answering questions about the integration. So if you've got more questions or want to see an in-depth review or explanation, or just like looking at Emery's face, the masterclass from that is up on our YouTube. I believe that was February or March we did that one.
Yeah.
So feel free to go back and check that one out.
Okay.
Cool. So I'm not seeing any other questions about Gravity or about the invoice delivery. So I think we can actually move on to the product updates and what's just around the corner.
Yeah, so I touched on this earlier. We are working on these modules, is a big chunk of this. We're also working on some ease of use when looking at draft invoices and kind of like modifying the draft, or some of you call it pre-bills. So an example of this is sometimes when you review a draft invoice, you might notice a time entry is on the wrong, maybe assigned to the wrong matter, but you already have an invoice created for that matter. And so we're just going to add some functionality where when you notice that, rather than assigning it to the new matter, having to take your invoice out of draft into ready to build and build a new draft, you can actually take time entries from one draft invoice and apply them to another. So a little less steps, a little more, I guess, fluidity to that, and kind of not disrupting the workflow too much. But most of it's around doing more of these modules, doing some ease of use, or some, ease of just like executing in the kind of draft invoice review. And we're also making some changes to reports. So and in particular on our compensation reporting, a lot of times the headers of those columns don't make a lot of sense. And so we're kind of revamping the descriptions for that data so that it's kind of easier to consume.
I think you and I were both on a call earlier this week where that was one of the main focuses of the meeting was, what do we change the report headers to, and how do we make that a easier report to read? So it's great to see the quick turnaround on that, and that the engineering team is already aware that there's interest in getting those changed up.
Yeah, I mean, it's the beauty and the curse of software, right? You can generally change things, but a lot of times you're learning along the way, and we just keep learning, like there's a better, more efficient way to talk about these things. And so we're kind of making those modifications to make it easier for everyone.
Yep, and love to see that. And a lot of that feedback comes from the people in this webinar, actually, is we look to you all for your feedback, and as users of the product, your frustrations and insights are oftentimes more valuable than what we might come up with in the team here. I can have the greatest idea and think, oh yeah, everyone will love this. And then it goes to live and everyone's like, Chase, why did you make this? No, but if we can get feedback from people who are really using it on a daily basis, if one person wants it, it's probably other firms that want it. So do keep that feedback coming. So, and I think the last thing here in terms of what's up next is the draft invoice process.
Yeah, so that's what I was describing. I focused in on a very specific example, but that just kind of how you look and function within the draft of, I mentioned one thing might go from a current draft invoice that you're reviewing, but it actually needs to be on something else, so you can just move it rather than a bunch of other clicks. The other one that we're looking at is when you create a time entry on a draft invoice, like you might review something and say like, oh, we're missing a couple things here. And you add it, usually those get added to the bottom. They're not in chronological order of their section. And so we're taking care of that issue. So whenever you create one on a pre-bill or on that draft invoice, we're going to automatically put it in the correct chronological order. So those are a couple examples of what we're going to be working on in the draft invoice section.
Some small but necessary changes.
Yeah. Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, well, it looks like the crowd has quieted down and we're not getting nearly as many questions in now. Marie sent us half a question. I'll wait for that to come back in. She might have hit enter too early. It says, any plans for? Nic, any plans for the weekend? What?
Yeah, I got more woodworking projects to go. So
Nice. So the question from Marie is, any plan for amicus cases? I'm not sure I understand that.
Yeah, I am actually not familiar with that. So I would have to go take a look at that. If that is a software system and we're talking an integration, obviously I don't know what I'm talking about, so it could be something completely different. But if that's an integration, we don't have anything in mind right now outside of more QuickBooks functionality and more Gravity Legal interconnective tissue, as well as some Zapier functions kind of on the horizon, if you guys are familiar with Zapier. Now, if that's a particular practice area, which I don't know, also not on the radar.
Karen gave us an answer, but it's kind of fun watching you stumble and give like the political response to this.
Yeah.
Amicus, it looks like, is a case management system that's a desktop. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably not anytime soon.
Native integration, no. So, and when we talk about integrations, natively means like we're doing a lot of deep connections on the functionality from that system. But when we get to this Zapier in Q4, probably Q1 of next year, that opens up the doors for us to connect with a lot of different systems, assuming that other system has what they call APIs and webhooks, if people are familiar with that. So, but no.
Clean, concise answers. No, unless it's got a Zapier integration.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that's just about it. Oh, of course. Ali, I was just about to wrap up. Let's see. Curious if you've been working on a fix. Curious to fix the invoice date when generating invoices. Mine is set to the last day of the month, but when I generate one a few days before the last day, it defaults to that day instead of the last. She's referring to the setting of how the invoice date is picked, whether it's the last day of the billing period or the current day. And that, I believe, is determined by the time period filter you have set. So
I think we'd have to look at your setup to fully understand kind of what might be going on or make a suggestion.
My support brain immediately says, make sure to check your filters. Usually this month is the one that's most common, this month or a specific month. If it's still doing that after you've made sure to check the filter is correct, just hit us up in the support chat and we can jump into some of the specifics there. I mean, unless everyone here wants to go through a support call with me, more than happy to do that, but I assume most everyone else probably has other things to get to.
Oh yeah, there goes everybody. Everybody's just peacing
oh
out.
No, half the viewers are gone. Sweet. All right, Nic. Well, I think we're just about wrapped up. So unless there's anything else that you've got or any last minute questions, I think we'll go ahead and conclude here.
No, just really appreciate you guys again taking some time out of your day to come hang out with us and see what we're working on. And also really appreciate the comments in the chat. This is a pretty lively group today, which was awesome. It's always great. And just really appreciate you guys' time.
Likewise, glad seeing you all and getting to chat in a non-support environment and have a little bit more fun with it. So Nic, thank you as always for bringing the new and exciting things to myself and everyone else here. And we will catch you all later.